Good morning, America. Thank you for joining us. Know that you have a busy day scheduled, and we appreciate your joining us today. There's an interesting article out this morning in reference to the stockpiling of guns and ammunition on the part of the Department of Homeland Security. And I strongly encourage each of you to find that story and the link on our Facebook and or our website. The story is entitled, "Why is Government Stockpiling Guns and Ammo?" And basically, he runs, the author of this article, which is Joseph Farah, runs over the issues. This is on WorldNet Daily, excuse me. And his concern is that this is exactly what we've been talking about. This is kind of his confirmation of our theory, that this is the actual implementation of the Obama promise that we had to have a civilian national security force that's just as powerful, just as strong, and just as well funded as our military. Now, Obama's actual quote was, and this was in July 2 of 2008, "We cannot continue to rely only on our military in order to achieve the national security objectives we have set. We've got to have a civilian national security force that's just as powerful, just as strong, just as well funded." So I ask you, if this is not the implementation of Obama's vision here. He made this campaign promise, and our military is currently, our current military budget is some $450 billion a year. And yet, we've seen him pour enormous resources into the Department of Homeland Security, while simultaneously pouring billions of rounds of ammunition and new weapons into the hands of the same agency. Now, prior to Obama's promises, the first time that phrase, a civilian national security force, was ever used was by Defense Secretary Robert Gates back during the Bush administration. So we haven't actually heard Obama talk about the civilian national security force since that time. But the simple truth is we don't know what they're spending money on. We don't know whether this is as well funded as our military because they haven't done a budget in 4 years. Basically, what it comes down to is we have absolutely no idea what this government, the national government, is spending money on. We know that they're spending it like drunken sailors, but we don't know what he's spending it on. And the simple reason we don't is because they refuse adamantly to provide us with any kind of a budget. So the question is, why does a civilian Department of Homeland Security, and I do clarify this and say it is a civilian agency, need billions of rounds of ammunition? I mean, this isn't the agency that blocks our border, although Immigration and Customs Enforcement is underneath Department of Homeland Security. Certainly, they didn't buy all that ammunition just for the border. In fact, our border is so porous at this point that they're not even doing that job. Well, the agency is also responsible for catching domestic terrorists, right, or foreign terrorists on our soil. But they don't. They do occasionally trot out some kind of a perp walk example of one individual who they may classify as a domestic terrorist. But for all intents and purposes, we're not seeing them capturing terrorists on a routine basis. So why does Homeland Security need enough ammunition to kill every man, woman, and child in the nation 6 times? I mean, I'm asking that question of our national government. Why does Homeland Security, a civilian agency, need 2 billion rounds or 2+ billion rounds of ammunition? I mean, is this the civilian national security force that's just as powerful, just as strong, just as well funded as the Defense Department? The term and the phrase civilian national security force should scare the daylights out of every single American. I don't care what political party or what ideology you hold. The words civilian national security force should scare you to death. We cannot have a domestic agency that is charged solely and exclusively with the subjugation of American citizens. And yet the Department of Homeland Security has been arming itself to the teeth for the past 4 years in an attempt to accomplish exactly that. Now, the Homeland Security bureaucracy that has been set up allows Obama to take direct control of that, independently and individually. And you've got to wonder what or why that would be. In other words, what was the motivation for the president to be able to, and this was back around October. What is the motivation for the White House to be able to have absolute dictatorial control over Homeland Security and the Department of Homeland Security? Obama says it's to advance and enhance the federal government's use of local partnerships to address Homeland Security challenges. He claimed at the time that he was doing it under authority of the Constitution. And he created a council for that called the White House Homeland Security Partnership Council. I mean, we already have the Department of Homeland Security, and that already works with local governments. So why did you need to create this council? Basically, he wants to be able to take control of who's allowed to participate in these federal, state law enforcement partnerships and participants. The fact of the matter is, people, that the United States has somewhere near about 500,000 troops right now. That's roughly where we're at. And they have a defense budget of about $450 million to accomplish that. We don't know how much money he has pumped into Department of Homeland Security, because since 2008, there hasn't been a budget. That's the purpose of budgets, folks. Remember, we haven't had a budget in 2008. We didn't have a budget in 2009. We didn't have a budget in 2010. We haven't had a budget in 2011. We haven't had a budget in 2012. And we haven't had a budget now going into 2013. That, ladies and gentlemen, is unconscionable. But more importantly, what it does is it allows the government to begin to misuse money in a way that's untraceable and untrackable. In other words, there's zero accountability if there's no budget. So the question is, how much money is the DHS actually getting, and why do they need all of these guns and ammo, while simultaneously doing everything in their power to strip you of yours? That's our bullet points for today. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'd like you to call us in on our Wits End Classic Barbershop hotline. You can call us at 417-257-1111 and 866-554-6636. That's 257-1111 or 866-554-6636. If you think I'm wrong, let me know where. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Mike Evans. I'll be back in just a moment.
Family Fun and Fitness, LLC presents rape and assault prevention classes at Country Cupboard in Licking, Missouri. Men, women, boys, and girls, if you want to know how to stack the deck in your favor in a situation where violence is the only answer, this class is for you. Rape and assault prevention classes are held Monday evenings at 5:30 beginning February 11th and run through March 18th. Class size is limited, so call today 417-260-1006 or register at Country Cupboard, 217 North Highway 63 in Licking.
Here we go with round 2 of Hope and Change. Looking forward looks bumpy and rocky. Nobody's stimulated by high unemployment and tax increases. Ozark Mountain Self-Reliance can help you be ready to face the challenges of the next 4 years. We have long-term food storage, ammunition, informational books and DVDs, water purifiers, and a whole lot more. Come see us at 3225 Highway 62 East, Suite number 3, just a half mile past Walmart in Mountain Home, or call us at 492-4030. That's Ozark Mountain Self-Reliance.
All right, we are back with you on your radio live. Again, you're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. I'm your host this hour and, frankly, every hour. I'd like to introduce our listenership to a brand new sponsor that we have, and we'd like for you folks to work with these guys. West Plains Pawn, down in West Plains on 1713 U.S. Highway 160 West, that's about a mile and a half or a mile past Walmart, is a brand new sponsor for us. This is an outstanding firearms and sporting goods store. The folks down there are well trained and have a great opportunity to help you in whatever way, shape, or form that you need in recommending the right firearm, the right holster, the right kind of ammunition, and so forth and so on. They have about 400 guns under glass, and I would strongly encourage you to get down there and see them. They have a very, very large selection of rifles, pistols, shotguns, you name it, they've got it. They handle ammunition, optics, pretty much anything and everything for the shooter. They're also a pawn shop, and certainly they'll be able to help you there as well. You can find them on the web at westplainspawn.com. That's westplainspawn.com. You can also call them at 417-256-3000, 417-256-3000. Also, our friends over at Pizza Hut in West Plains have sponsored the show. Make sure that you swing by Pizza Hut. They have a family night on Tuesday nights, and kids eat free. And they have an outstanding lunch buffet where you can get salad or you can get pizza and a host of other good things there. They got great wings. Make sure that you get in there and ask for Bree when you get there. She'll be more than happy to take care of you. That's Pizza Hut in West Plains on Porter Wagoner Boulevard. Excuse me. Go ahead, caller. Welcome to the show.
Hey, good morning, Mike.
Good morning.
You know something that just occurred to me when you were talking about that, and it's totally outrageous, the number of rounds and the ammunition.
Yeah.
Or the guns. But what I would like to know, and I think would be interesting, who'd they buy it from?
Well, they have orders in place, they have contracts in place for military and federal ammunition purchases. If we're talking about ammunition,
right?
If we're talking about firearms, they buy those direct from the manufacturer under contract.
Okay, but my point is, and I don't deny your point at all. Let me put it that way.
Okay.
But my question is it somewhere like the supply in Egypt, tanks and F-16s, because it seems to me that there's no good reason to do so unless you are padding the pocket of someone that is interconnected.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure I'm following your point here.
My point is that I think there's this merging, this plutocracy, this oligarchy, whatever you want to call it, of people that are making money. I'm not sure that this, for instance, the Egyptian deal was for any reason other than someone said, we want, that's interconnected within our government through the military-industrial complex that says, this is money that we need.
Yeah, well, the contract with Egypt, let me just clarify for you how that was set up. That was set up under the days of Mubarak. Right. And so this is just a continuation of an existing agreement that we had with Mubarak. The real problem I have with it is not necessarily the fact that we had an agreement with Mubarak, which whether we agree or disagree that we should have had one, it doesn't really make any difference. It's done. But the real issue here is not necessarily that it's the fact that the rules and the players have changed. And so therefore the contract has changed. In other words, the terms of the contract change when the player changes. And now Morsi, excuse me, and the Egyptian military are no longer the same friends they were. Now, I understand the argument from the administration is that Morsi is really not the recipient of the weapons that the military of Egypt is, and that the Egyptian military is a separate and distinct entity from their political government. Right. However, the real problem, and that we want to keep their military friendly to us, the problem with that is that one of the first things that Morsi did when he got into office was he removed a lot of the top leadership in their military that were friendly to the United States, and he replaced those folks with people that had allegiance to the Morsi administration. And so I'm not sure that the same military, in other words, that the military that we're supporting is the same military we were supporting. You follow?
Well, I'm quite sure that it is not.
Right. And so if the argument is basically that all we're trying to do is make sure that we keep a friend of the Egyptian military, I'm not so sure that we're keeping a friend of the same Egyptian military that we think we're keeping a friend of.
I agree with that. I don't even know that we think that we are. Or this administration thinks that we are. But my point is this money, and I do think, as I'm sure you agree with, there are areas we could trim the defense spending. Okay,
of course.
There's,
sure. But we don't even know how much that is because they won't do a budget.
We don't have any idea how much that is.
They won't do a budget.
And that is the most outrageous thing of all. I've been hollering about it now for 4 years. But
without a budget, everything is unaccountable.
Absolutely. Well, Mike, it was just a point that I had. I didn't, I want to know who gains from these sales. Who is it that gets something out of this?
Well, the ammunition and the firearms manufacturers, to be honest with you, the firearms buying 7,000 machine guns, which they're calling personal defense weapons, by the way. These are true machine guns, by the way.
Right.
Buying 7,000 machine guns is really that's a flea on the elephant's hiney in terms of a government order.
Oh, and I realize it is, but at the same time, my point is that we need to talk to. We need to get to these people that are supplying this ammunition, this gun power, firepower. That in the same way that we felt like, if you think that's unconscionable for them to have it, it's no different than that guy that showed up to haul that cheese away.
Well, the simple truth is, listen, those manufacturers, whether they're of firearms or ammunition, are going to, vote with their pocket, not with their morality or with their sense of justice
same people that haul the cheese off, just a lot.
Listen, our country is rife and rampant with it, and we just have to recognize that, no manufacturer is going to stand up there and turn down an order. Because they've got some political disagreement with how they're going to be used.
I think you probably would.
So, well, I probably would, but I don't own the company.
That's my point.
If I was king, things would be different, but I'm not. So, therefore, hey, what can I say?
They can dig up your bones in 500 years.
Hey, that's fine. You know.
See you.
See you later. Thanks so much for the call. Go ahead, caller. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, good morning, Mike.
Good morning.
I'm not going to blame capitalism on this problem. The people that's going to prosper over in Egypt are going to be the Muslim Brotherhood, and let's bring that point out.
Well, sure, and we know that, and quite honestly, I think the administration knows that, which is why they're doing it. Irrespective of what argument and justification and rationalization they want to give us, the simple truth is they want the Morsi government to succeed.
Yeah, exactly, and all gloves are off, it seems like right now, so I see, and I'm probably you do too, more bombings of our embassies all over the Islamic world, similar to what we went through in the Carter administration, the Clinton administration, and we're going to see it now.
For whatever reason, this administration is hell-bent on supporting Islamic governments and therefore Islamic terrorism, because those governments are all state sponsors of terrorism. And I don't understand it. I can't fathom it. It doesn't make sense to me in a logistical format. I cannot grasp the idea of why you want to cleave to an enemy, and yet this administration is hell-bent to do so.
Unfortunately,
it ought to rock every American. It ought to make every American question everything that they ever thought they knew about politics and geopolitical foreign policy.
Both our senators, unfortunately, in Missouri, voted to give these weapons to our enemy.
McCaskill, I would expect that from. Blunt, as far as I'm concerned, Blunt needs to go. And 2010 is our 2010. 2014 is our opportunity to do that. So.
Yeah, I agree.
We need to field a candidate. I have to tell you, though, that that the Republican Party is fighting back against Tea Party candidates. They do not want them. They want status quo. They want neocon, warmongering, warhawk, party, allied sycophants. And the simple truth is that, and you can see it. You can see it in how they're cutting out and weeding out the Tea Party candidates out of the Republican Party. They're putting them in a position where they don't sit on the right committees. They're not supporting them financially. They're not supporting them politically, and they're doing everything in their power to redirect the power and the pressure from the Republican political party to disenfranchise those candidates that are Tea Party, if you will, independent. And that to me is a travesty. That just shows me that the Republican Party is definitely not interested in our best wishes, but is interested in their own, has their own agenda. Yeah, and it's not ours.
Their power. They're just interested in their power. Do the Democrats get the power? Do the Republican establishment get their power? And we, the people that.
Well, listen, we've got a cut. We've got a hard break coming up. Thanks for the call. I appreciate it. America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. We'll be back in just a moment.
Fox News Radio. I'm Salji Ingresso. In Minnesota today, President Obama will try to stoke support from the public and law enforcement for his gun control plan.
On some points, the president may succeed, limiting the size of magazines and trying to instate universal background checks for gun buyers. On other fronts, like an outright ban on military-style assault rifles, though, the president will face even tougher opposition, even from his own party.
Fox's Doug Luzader. The lights went out at the biggest football game of the year. Power to the New Orleans Superdome suddenly shut down early in the Super Bowl's third quarter. Authorities blame an abnormality in the power system that triggered an automatic shutdown.
When they did resume play, the 49ers erased most of Baltimore's lead, but the lead Joe Flacco built for the Ravens with 3 touchdown passes in the first half did hold up. Baltimore won 34-31.
Fox News Radio's Ron Flatter in New Orleans. Flacco was the game MVP. Fox News. We report, you decide.
The Declaration of Independence was written expressly to begin a revolution against the autocratic monarchs of Europe. That was the point. Freedom from government so we could pursue life, liberty, and happiness. Obama says, yeah, we have to have fidelity to our founding principles, but then he says, ultimately, however, that requires collective action. No, it doesn't.
Finding quality child care is important. Do you know the questions to ask?
Are children supervised at all times?
Does the staff know first aid and CPR?
Be child care aware. Just call Child Care Aware of Missouri at 1-866-892-3228 or log on to mo.childcareaware.org.
How many children are being cared for?
Does this child care program have an emergency plan?
Finding the right child care could be one of the biggest decisions any parent will ever make. Let us help. Valuable information for parents as well as child care providers is available online and on the phone, and it's all free.
Have all the child care providers gone through a background check?
Have they had proper child care training?
The questions you need answered. The answers you've been looking for. Call Child Care Aware of Missouri at 1-866-892-3228 or log on to mo.childcareaware.org. Be child care aware.
Weather sponsorships are now available on News Talk 107.1 The Point. Get more information. Email info@diamondmediaradio.com for complete details.
From the Point Weather Center for this morning, mostly cloudy skies, clouds and a couple of showers as we head through the day today. The high 56 degrees. It'll be partly cloudy tonight, low 26. Sunny both tomorrow and Wednesday, the high each day 54, maybe a sprinkle Thursday. I'm staff meteorologist Jim Rinaldi, and for more information, visit my1071thepoint.com.
80% of lightning strike fatalities are men who stay outdoors during approaching storms. These victims pay the ultimate price needlessly and leave their families behind to face a life of loss and sorrow. If you can hear thunder, even a distant rumble, lightning is close enough to strike you. Immediately seek shelter in a substantial building or a metal-topped vehicle. To learn more, visit lightningsafety.noaa.gov. This message brought to you by the National Weather Service.
All right, we are back. I want to remind you folks to go see the battery station, 303 Washington Avenue in West Plains, 257-7799. It's 417-257-7799. They can be found also on the web at batterystation.com, and you can visit them at 303 Washington Avenue in West Plains, Missouri. Bill Stone over at Stone Construction has been in the construction business for 40 years, does a great job with remodels, custom and new work, light commercial, concrete work, pole barns, corrals, pipe corrals, farm, home, commercial, makes no difference. He does it all. You can reach Bill at 293-0116. And again, make sure that if you're planning on a project that you're giving him an opportunity to bid on that project first. 293-0116. Our friend Mary over at Chantilly's Artisan Bakery at 255-2253. She's at number 2 Evans Arcade, which is off the square in West Plains. It's one of the alleyways there. It's Chantilly's Artisan Bakery, 255-2253. Best damn bakery in 100 miles. Our friends at Ozark Mountain Self-Reliance, 1/2 mile east of Walmart at 3225 Highway or Route 62 in Mountain Home. You can find them on the web at ozarkmtnselfreliance.com. You can also call them at 870-492-4030. Again, let me remind you of our newest sponsor, West Plains Pawn and Gun. They have they've got to have 400 plus firearms under glass there. They're at 1713 U.S. Highway 160 West, about a mile past Walmart on the right-hand side. You can find them on the web at westplainspawn.com. And you can also find them on your telephone at 417-256-3000. Also, make sure that you visit over with Jason over at Wits End Classic Barbershop. He is our sponsor of our telephone lines. He has the Wits End Classic Barbershop hotline. Our telephone numbers there, by the way, for your use are 257-1111, 866-554-6636. Jason has a classic barbershop that is like stepping back about 50 or 60 years. Cuts my hair, of course, and does this great hot lather shave with a straight razor thing. So if you're looking to treat your fella or your man or your significant other, make sure that you take him over to see Jason over at Wits End Classic Barbershop hotline. Or not the hotline, that's me. Get over to see Jason over at the Wits End Classic Barbershop. I want to talk about this story up on prcnews.org because there's a committee hearing that's coming up for right-to-work legislation. And you know that this is a significant portion of the Restore Missouri project, and we need your help. Here's what the deal is. There is a committee hearing on a new House bill that's going to be heard. It's HB 77. That's House Bill 77. And Eric Burleson is the sponsor of that. And this is a right-to-work or employment freedom bill, and it's going to be a public hearing on the Workforce Development and Workplace Safety Committee on Wednesday, February 6th. Now, it's going to be held at the basement of the Missouri Capitol. And what we need to do is make sure that we are letting our legislators know that it's critically important that they support this HB 77. We don't want I've told you before, Tim Jones, the Speaker of the House, said that they want to do paycheck protection, which basically says under paycheck protection, you as an employee can specify, I may be a union member, but I don't want my union dues to go to support political campaigns. And the idea is to starve the beast. But I say go one step better than starving the beast of just his water. Make sure that you're starving him of food also. And that's to eliminate the demand that you have to join a union if you want to work. So right-to-work legislation is different. Right-to-work says you don't have to join a union just to have the job. And I think that's a far better way of resolving the problem than basically saying you still have to join the union, but you can redirect your dues. I've talked to Tim Jones, House Speaker, about this before. As you know, I've been critical of the fact that we have a veto-proof majority in both the House and the Senate, and we're not utilizing that properly. I think we should be going out there fighting for everything that we can get our hands on while we have that veto-proof majority. If we don't do that, we will be the equivalent of Obama, who had a majority in the House and the Senate in the first 2 years of his run and accomplished nothing during all that time. He spent all of his political capital doing Obamacare. And we cannot afford that. We are in we are in a crisis period in our states, in our state rights arguments and fights here, and it is time that we put right to work in play in Missouri. I mean, folks, if they can get it in Michigan, why can't we have it here in Missouri? Right to work is not an option. It's a demanded must-have. We must have right to work, and I'll tell you why. Corporations who come in here, go talk to any economic development group. I know that there's an economic development group for the state of Missouri, and they received 11 inquiries from major manufacturers who are coming here. Out of that 11, 7 of them asked the one question, do you have right to work legislation? And the minute we said no, they fell right off the radar. So this is not optional, people. This is a must-have. The reason we're not getting good quality companies to move here and good quality paying jobs that will come with those companies is because we don't have right to work. And just because you allow the union member to redirect their dues away from political campaigns doesn't mean a thing to the employer who doesn't want to have to be forced to go union. You see, their perspective is a union is not in our best interest. And so, frankly, even if, the union members can vote their dues in a different direction, that doesn't solve the fact or solve the problem of the fact that the union can still take control of our company for all intents and purposes. And you can't blame a corporation for not wanting to put themselves in a position of liability. That's how it works. Corporations don't want to be placed where they are opening themselves up to be unionized the minute they arrive here. So the goal is we must have right to work. It is a movement that is sweeping our nation. It is long past due. It is absolutely required, and you need to support House Bill 77. Now you can go to prcnews.org, and there's a petition there or a witness form that you can sign. And we also need you to make sure that you are calling your senators and your congresspeople in reference to this bill. It's HB 77, right to work, and we absolutely must have this passed. Now, Mike Cunningham is the senator for the 33rd District, and he can be reached. I hope everybody's got your pen and paper out, because if you don't know by now to have pen and paper ready, listen, this is not Alex Jones where we just tell you about everything that's wrong. We're telling you what's wrong, and then we're telling you how to fix it. So your job is to keep a piece of paper and pen handy. All right. But you have no idea how many phone calls I get and how many emails I get from somebody who says, well, you mentioned this and I didn't have my pen and paper ready. You know what? That's your job. That's your obligation. I expect that you're going to do that part of it. That's the part you play. You're the activist part, okay? My job is to bring the information to you. Your job is to take the action. So I expect that everybody is going to carry around one of those little spiral notebooks in a shirt pocket if you're out on the road and you got a pen handy, or if you're at home, I expect you to keep, something with you to write with. Mike Cunningham, 33rd District Senator, 573-751-1882. That's Cunningham. He's Senator, 573-751-1882. Robert Ross, 142nd Rep, 573-751-1490. That's Robert Ross, 573-751-1490. Sean Rhodes, 154th District. Sean Rhodes, 573-751-1455. 573-751-1455. Tony Duggar, 141st. That's Wright and Webster counties, in some corner of something else. 573-751-2205. That's 573-751-2205. And Jeff Pogue. Jeff is at 573-751-2264. That's 573-751-2264. Now, those of you who are astute and listening are noticing that 573-751 is the exchange, the area code and exchange for every one of these offices. So when you want to know what your senator's or your congressperson's phone number is, it always starts with 573-751. Okay? You can get their email. Basically, every representative email and senator's email is their first name with a period after it and their last name at senate.mo.gov or house.mo.gov. So just keep that as a rule of thumb. If you want to send them email, you can put their first name, period, last name at house.mo.gov or senate.mo.gov. Okay? The only confliction you're going to have with that is, does the guy call himself, Mike or Michael? Like in Mike Cunningham's example, he uses Mike.Cunningham. He doesn't go Michael.Cunningham. So, but, take some action on your own. Be big boys and girls. Let's put our big boy pants on and let's go make sure that we're letting everyone within the sound of our voice know that we expect them to support and pass right-to-work legislation in our state. And if this no good governor just decides that he's going to veto it, that's why we have a veto-proof House and Senate. So we're going to take a quick break for the quarter hour. We've got to pay the bills. Make sure that you stick with us. We're going to have we'll be back in just a couple of minutes, and I've got one or two other news stories I want to run over with you. And but make sure that you are spreading the word on this right-to-work thing. Let's get a grassroots effort moving where you are in contact with everyone that you know, that you work with, you go to church with, you go to school with. Educate your friends around you. Get them active on this process. Let's get right-to-work done. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. I'm your host. Find us on the web at americasvoicenow.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/America's Voice Now. Also find us on YouTube, where we post every show we do at youtube.com/America's Voice Now. We'll be back in just a moment.
I know what you're thinking, punk. You're thinking, did he fire 6 shots or only 5?
Dirty Harry gets all his ammo from the battery station. John Rambo, you guessed it. He gets his ammo from the battery station, too. So if you need ammo, go to the place where the guys who know about ammunition go, the battery station. They have one of the largest supplies of ammunition in the area. So make sure you're stocked up and don't get low on shells. Go to the battery station at 303 Washington Avenue in West Plains.
One of America's most controversial lawmakers on the next Alan Colmes Show. First, he tried to ban the word gay. Now he wants to base welfare payments on school children's grades. I'll talk to the state senator behind those bills. Plus, it's the Friday Night Free-for-All, where, as always, every call goes on the air completely unscreened on the next Alan Colmes Show.
Weekdays 9 to midnight. It's the Alan Colmes Show on the Ozarks Best News Talk, 107.1 The Point.
You know the type of driver as soon as you get behind one. The driver who isn't paying attention because they're talking on the phone. They're not only a nuisance, they're downright dangerous. 1 in 4 crashes involve someone using a cell phone. Driving while using a phone reduces your reaction time. It's easy to see cell phone distracted driving in others, but we often don't see it in ourselves. Remember, when you're on the road, stay off the phone. Learn more at nsc.org, a public service from the National Safety Council.
You know, there's a guy I really enjoy who was very witty and wise in the ways of humanity. He's a great author and kind of a pundit out there. His name is H.L. Mencken. H.L. Mencken. His last name is spelled Mencken. And I would encourage you to get out there and read some of his quotes. He's got literally hundreds of them. But there's a couple of them that are out there that are really, truly representative of just bold truth that you cannot deny. All you got to do is read these and say, wow, I see the exact wisdom of that statement. I'm just going to read you a couple of quick ones. The urge to save humanity is almost always a false front for the urge to rule. It's a very telling statement. The urge to save humanity is almost always a false front for the urge to rule. These are tidbits of wisdom that I find that from Mencken that just, strike immediately home. It's like an arrow right into the bullseye. There's absolutely no denying the truth and the sense and the common sense of this. Here's another great one, and this one is so true. And all you have to do is look at our current situation, and you'll see exactly what I mean. The whole aim of practical politics is to keep the populace alarmed and hence clamoring to be led to safety by menacing it with an endless series of hobgoblins, all of them imaginary. Let me read that to you again. The whole aim of practical politics is to keep the populace alarmed and hence clamoring to be led to safety by menacing it with an endless series of crises and hobgoblins, all of them imaginary. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the truth. That is exactly how our government operates. They give you these crises, and this is the Hegelian dialectic, if you haven't heard of that. Basically, they manufacture a crisis or get the press to promote a crisis that doesn't exist, and then they turn around and use that information to get people to scream for resolution. The minute they do, government provides them with this heavy-handed, iron-gloved type of resolution that always leads to a diminution of your rights and liberties. Always. Perfect example, this issue in Newtown. They took that crisis and they put it to absolutely good use. In fact, you know and understand well that this administration believes strongly in the Hegelian dialectic because basically Rahm Emanuel couched it for everyone. Never let a good crisis go to waste. Now, whether the crisis is real, imagined, or whether it's in some cases a false flag type operation with our sponsored and promoted by our own government to give us fear. And I'll give you some examples of that. One would be Fast and Furious. Now, they knew exactly what they were doing during Fast and Furious, but what they were trying to do was get a whole bunch of public sentiment behind the idea that gun control could be promoted and should be promoted by virtue of the fact that we were arming Mexican cartels. Now, they knew damned well that they were the ones who were doing it. They knew damned well that the way that they were doing it was dirty. They knew damned well what their real motivation and intention was, and that was to get public opinion behind the concept of doing gun legislation or anti-gun legislation. And so the goal was manufacture a crisis, in the case of Fast and Furious, make up a crisis, publicize it, get the public to clamor for safety, Newtown, and the minute that they do, give them exactly what they're asking for, which always comes with a diminution of your rights and your liberties as a human being. Forget it just as an American. We have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness in whatever way we see fit to accomplish that, as long as we don't hurt, harm, or injure others. And, let's be honest, that is not a right that is bestowed only on citizens of the United States of America. That is a right that is bestowed on every human being by God and by nature and by the fact that we basically are alive. If you're a human being, you have basic foundational rights, and it doesn't make any difference whether you live here in the United States or you're in Canada, Mexico, France, Zimbabwe, Syria, or Russia, or China. It makes no difference. These are unalienable rights that are humankind rights. And our government uses fear and uses the pressure of public demand for a resolution to a problem from people who have become so dependent and so inept that they can no longer even support and handle their own affairs. And so they look for someone stronger, someone bigger, someone more powerful, someone less lazy than them to do their job for them. They have lost all self-respect. They've lost every ounce of their of any self-reliance they may have had, self-esteem, and basically they ask government to be a nanny, to hold their hand, to give them a teat to suck upon. They don't want to work. They don't want to defend themselves. They don't want to think. They don't want to have a critical thinking concept. It's too hard. It's too much trouble. I'd rather just be lazy and watch television all day. I'd rather have my mind dulled and numbed. That's the problem with America, people. We live in the United States of apathy. And apathy is exactly what the government lives and feeds upon. Your apathy. While you are sitting there idling away the hours, idling away the days, idling away the years, government is growing at an unprecedented pace. And every step that it takes forward, you must retreat. Why? Well, it's real simple. You cannot have individual liberty and government control occupy the same space in the universe at any given moment in time. You've heard me say this and use this analogy for the ATF and the Second Amendment. You've heard me utilize this analogy in 100 different ways. I'm going to use it again for this scenario. It's simply this. You cannot have government which is automatically restrictive of your rights and liberties, and liberty occupying the same space at the same time. So if government swells, you must retreat. If government moves forward, you must retreat. It's not optional. It's just the way things are. These are forces, folks, that are universal in their nature. It's not optional for us to be able to change them. The only thing that we can do as citizens, the only things that we can do as human beings is to fight back against the overburdening and the force of government pushing us back. If you want to think of it like a football team, I mean, everybody watched the Super Bowl last night, right? You got two opposing teams, and they're lined up there on the scrimmage line. And one guy who's bigger is able to push the other guy back. You have to grow bigger in order to have the weight to be able to push back the opponent. And in this case, the opponent is our national government. We have to be able to regain control of the circumstance, regain control of our own future. And the only way that we're going to be able to do that is to put candidates in place to make sure that we are situationally aware of the circumstances going on around us and taking every step, every action that we possibly can to make sure that our nation and our state, both simultaneously, by the way, these can't be done in linear, they have to be worked simultaneously in parallel, that both of these efforts are going ahead at full steam ahead. You know, damn the torpedoes, full steam ahead. We must restore our state and we must restore our federal government. We don't have an option, people, because it's not going to stop unless we stop it. It's just the laws of physics. These are universal laws. They're not made up by me. They're not made up by you. They're not made up by any of them, quote unquote. They're not made by government. Government just takes advantage of the natural law. And government is growing at a pace that we have allowed to get completely out of control. How many of you remember the movie The Blob from back in the 50s, or 60s, I guess it was, with Steve McQueen? You know, this thing landed from space, and it was this gigantic jello. But as it ate the dogs and the cats in town, it just kept growing and growing and growing and growing and growing. And sooner than later, it eventually, wrapped itself around. It was big enough to wrap itself around a bowling alley and squeeze through the windows and eat everybody inside. This is the same scenario. Government has grown and grown and grown and grown, and every step that it takes, we must retreat. So the alternative to that is we have to fight back. How do we do that? Well, we start with things like HB 77 that says we can eliminate we can have right to work in our state. By doing that, we open up the opportunity for companies and industries to come here and invest in our community and help drive new jobs, new opportunities, and bring capital into our state. We do that by passing HB 170 that says that the federal government's mandate on assault weapons, ammunition, and magazines will have no power here. That's it, people. We got to be in it to win it. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Mike Evans. Please make sure that you join us every morning from 8 a.m. till 9 a.m., and our show repeats from 8 to 9 p.m. If you have a friend or a family member that you'd like to introduce the show to, by all means you can. You can also send them to our website at americasvoicenow.org. You can send them to our Facebook page at facebook.com/America's Voice Now. And you can also send them to our YouTube page where they can watch every episode daily that we post up there. And they can simply get there by going to youtube.com/America's Voice Now.
Let's get to the point.
Well, let me get to the point.
FM News Talk for the Ozarks is FM 107.1, The Point, KBMV.